Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to yet another news section on Rainbow Six Siege. Now, normally I just do gameplay videos on the games that I'm interested in. At the moment that's Siege, and occasionally news sections, but quite frankly there's a lot of stuff that is newsworthy happening around Siege and in Siege at the moment, and a lot of drama that is really quite fun to address. So, following up my previous video, which was a similar kind of news release on the upcoming Advanced Edition and why I wasn't so sold on the idea, we will be covering the update on that previous video, as well as the upcoming Operation Outbreak. So here we go. Starting off with the Advanced Edition, essentially, a synopsis of my thoughts was that it was a bad value proposition for new players. It was replacing the standard edition, adding $20 on and giving you in exchange just some stupid cosmetics and a tiny amount of credits that is worth a single DLC operator from either year 1 or year 2. And I figured that that was not worth the increased price, not at all, for an incoming player into Siege, and that essentially it was a downgrade for new players compared to the current standard edition, which is basically just cheaper and simpler. But in response to the uproar around this whole idea of replacing standard edition with advanced edition, Ubisoft has, impressively gone back and said, okay, you're pissed, we understand, we're not going to do this, which is pretty damn awesome. It shows that they are listening to the community and really have sort of their fingers on the, on the pulse? Yeah, that's it. That's the saying I'm going for. They've really got their fingers on the pulse. They know what's happening. They know what people are feeling. And the general feeling was that the Advanced Edition was a terrible idea. So hence, it's no longer a thing. So fantastic. New players can still play with and purchase the standard edition. And also, if you watched my last video, you will be aware that I am very strongly of the opinion that the starter edition for Siege, which has a horrific grind to unlock the default operators, but which is at its base price cheaper, is a terrible purchase choice, as it is just a waste of time. It takes that long to purchase and unlock all of the operators. But in response to this, Ubisoft have once again shown that they're aware of this issue and that they are they're going to be addressing the grind and the unlock rate for the starter edition, which is pretty fantastic. So yeah, that will be addressed. The standard edition is sticking around, so yeah, thumbs up. Great job. But yeah, onto the actually juicy news. Operation Outbreak. We've been given a ton of juicy tidbits and details around it. So the blog post in particular that I'm reading from will be detailed in the description below. I'll leave the link to it there. And on this blog post, you can also watch the trailer, which is pretty cool, actually. It's really quite solid. Very well made, as to be fair, a lot of the operator videos are in Siege. So no surprise there, I guess. But yeah. All of this you can access yourself, but I'll be kind of picking out the key points and giving my opinions on them and what I think of the mode. So here we are, let's kick it off with what's happening with it. Well, essentially, if you do watch the trailer, you will know that a space capsule owned by the USSR from presumably the Cold War era has crash-landed in the town of Truth and Consequences, or is it Truth or Consequences? Truth or Consequences in New Mexico. And naturally, on board, there was a terrible, horrific virus called the Apex, which has traditionally escaped and infected the whole town. This is poor people. Think of the innocents, please. But yeah, essentially the town has been infected, it's been put under quarantine, and Rainbow Six, the team, has been sent in to keep the quarantine and deal with the infection at its source. So, yeah, what does this mean then in terms of gameplay? Well, that is detailed here. We will be going in teams of 3. It's a 3-player specific event, which is a bit of a random number, but I have to assume it's due to the balance of the mode. 3 players is sort of the sweet spot in terms of not being too impossible, but not being an absolute stomp for the players. And by this, I also assume that you can play either as the expected team of 3, a team of 2, or by yourself if you're up for a real challenge, similar to Terrorist Hunt. But yeah, we'll be going in teams of 3 into custom-made maps, that is detailed down here, and essentially just trying to deal with the infection, which is really cool. And there will be 5 different types of infected, and I guess we can look for inspiration towards games like Left 4 Dead or Killing Floor for what these kind of mutated types of infected might be. We can expect like an absolute sort of brute infected, like really hulking, muscular, takes a lot of damage and does a lot of damage, charges at us, you know, that kind of thing. And then some other ones with kind of disabling abilities alongside. Stuff like that I fully expect to feature as types of infected. But at this stage, it's purely speculative. We're just, you know, drawing inspiration from other games to kind of see what they might kind of do with this mode. But yeah, essentially 3 players up against the infected, trying to deal with the challenge. And speaking of challenge, there are 2 different difficulty modes. The normal one, where friendly fire is disabled, and you take less damage, and the harder one called Pandemic, where friendly fire is on, so you can hurt your teammates. If you're playing as Tachanka and you're just spraying about, mowing down hordes of infected, you could very well mow down your teammates as well. So Pandemic mode looks fun, and you also take a lot more damage in that mode, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, the really interesting thing for me that's detailed in this blog post is the 3 co-op levels that have been specifically made for this mode. So what this means is that these levels will be custom designed to work in this mode and make the most of the infected AI kind of trying to get you. But the really interesting sentence in this paragraph is this one, where it says, being designed for co-op, they are also more linear and feature a clear sense of progression. Now, to me, this indicates that this mode, that these 3 specific levels custom designed for the mode, will be objective levels. And by that, I mean, you will go from spawning into the map, starting with a objective, and which unlocks the next objective, that unlocks another one, and at the end of it, you will complete the final objective to, you know, win the infected map. Similar to, if you want to make like a really well-known comparison, similar game mode, it sounds very similar to Call of Duty's Nazi Zombies mode, where you spawn in, complete a bunch of objectives in a linear fashion, and then win at the end of a grueling, you know, session. Whoops, my voice is dying. But yeah, this is really cool because, you know, you could spawn in and have the initial objective be clear the landing zone of infected, you know, protect your chopper, as it were. And then you unlock, once you've done that, the next objective, which could be go into the town and find a source of, I don't know, infected matter. The next objective from that would be take it to a machine that makes a vaccine, and then the next objective could be to beat down an alpha infected or something like that and inject them with the vaccine. You know, all that's just off the top of my head, but the power of an objective map is that you can kind of build a narrative. And I fully expect, if this is the case, that the developers will be using this narrative to kind of tell the story of this new infected PvE game mode. And that is really exciting, because I do like a bit of fluff and background behind my game modes. And I'm also actually a huge fan of horde-based modes in general. Like, I absolutely adore Left 4 Dead, played it a ton back on the 360, and Killing Floor 2, a very similar kind of game as well. So yeah, pretty hyped for that. Another detail, though, is that only specific operators will be able to play this mode, which kind of makes sense when you think about the idea of like a massive hulking infected monster thing charging you, and if you're playing as mute, well, your signal jammers wouldn't be a whole lot of use there now, would they? But yeah, the operators that we will be able to play as include the upcoming 2 new ones, which many people have done speculative videos on their kits and abilities, so feel free to look them up. But in addition to those upcoming operators, we've got Smoke, Ying, Buck, Kapkan, Ash, Doc, Tachanka, Glaz, and of course Recruit, so that new players with not many operators unlocked can still play the mode. But yeah, one thing that I do like about this selection is that only 2 DLC operators can be played. So if you haven't bought the DLC operators from Year 1 or Year 2 yet, you've still got a very wide selection of operators to choose from, which is very cool. It makes the mode very accessible. Yeah, so as you can see, we've got 1 operator from Year 1 DLC and 1 operator from Year 2 with Ying. But yeah, and the Outbreak packs, which I think everyone has covered at this point. So yeah, I think that's more or less all the details for the mode. It looks really fun. As mentioned, I do love horde kind of survival-based modes, and throwing in objectives, as Left 4 Dead has proven, makes it all the more fun, as you've got to struggle to survive against waves and waves of infected, whilst trying to do a specific thing that just becomes harder the longer you survive. So yeah, I'm super excited for this. It sounds really cool. As mentioned, if you want to check out the details and the written specifics yourself, the link is in the description down below. But yeah, that's the news. Hopefully, we will get even more specifics later on. But in terms of when this will be released, if you have the test server, it will release on the 20th of February. If you don't, and you can't be bothered to install it, or you don't have the space in your hard drive, fair play. It will become officially available March the 6th, and it will end on April the 3rd. This is a timed event, so when it releases, yeah, get playing, because it will not be around forever. But on that note, I fully expect that this will actually be re-released in future years, possibly as a Halloween-specific event, or something similar, as really it sounds like they've put a lot of work into this mode, and, they're making specific levels, which, that takes a lot of time. They've made a new AI for the infected, they've made new models for the infected, I have to assume. So, yeah, I fully expect that all this work will not go to waste in future years, and indeed this mode will return either as a permanent mode at some point, or as a seasonal sort of maybe Halloween mode, maybe some other season mode, I don't know. But yeah, I hope that's the case, because this mode really is my jam. But yeah, there we go. Those are the details. Hopefully this was informative, and I will see you guys in the next video.